Dear students, in today's class we are going to learn one more practical experiment, that is experiment 13. Okay, so this is our last practical experiment. The task of this experiment is, again, it is related to the virtual networks only, as we have done already, that is in experiment 11 and 12. Okay, so here the task of this experiment is, we need to create a secondary subnet within the virtual network. We have to create a secondary subnet. Means, for example, if this is a cloud, the basics of virtual network already I have explained clearly in part 1. Okay, I'm going to give that link in the description if you want to know the basics of what is virtual network, what is subnet. Okay, these are all you can find out in another video, that is part 1. Okay, so this is part 3, which is related to experiment 13, practical experiment 13. Now, so for example, if this is a cloud, this is an internet. So within this internet, if we have a private network, the provision will be provided by the Azure. Okay, the provision is provided by the Azure. The provision, nothing but it is an isolated network or a private network which can be exclusively used by an organization. Okay, so the circle you are seeing in this is nothing but a virtual network. Okay, so this is a virtual network. So the circle you are seeing here is a virtual network. This is the first step we are going to perform now. Okay, we have to create a virtual network. Then within this virtual network, we can logically partition this virtual network into a subnets. Okay, so the logical partition of the virtual network is nothing but a subnet. So according to our experiment, we require two subnets. Okay, so we're going to create we're going to partition this virtual network into two partitions. Okay, into two partitions. So uh, first circle is I call it as a primary subnet. Okay, this is a primary subnet. The second subnet I called as a secondary subnet. Okay, so this is the second part we must do. So there is a virtual network. This is a service. There is a service provided by the Azure. We're going to create a virtual network. Within this virtual network, we're going to partition this virtual network into two subnets. Okay, we can have any number of partitions, but as per our requirement, we are going to have only two partitions, that is subnet and the secondary subnet. Okay, one is primary subnet and the second one is a secondary subnet. And the third step we're going to create one firewall here, which protects this whole virtual network from the outside traffic. Okay, this we call it as a firewall, nothing but a security guard at the entrance. Okay, so this is the firewall which protects the virtual network from the outside traffic and the traffic which goes from inside to the outside also. So this firewall is going to filter the data which is comes in and going out. Okay, so everything will be filtered here. Only authenticated traffic will be allowed by this firewall. Okay, so this is another service provided by the Azure. This firewall we called it as this firewall called as in Azure terms NSG, Network Security Group. Okay, NSG, Network Security Group. This is the third step we are going to perform. Okay, in the first step, we are going to create one virtual network, nothing but this big circle. In the second step, we are going to create two subnet. One is primary subnet, the second one is secondary subnet. And the third one is we're going to create one more service, that is called firewall, NSG, Network Security Group. Okay, so finally, the experiment 13 says that, the experiment 13 says that, uh, so we have to create a secondary subnet. After that, we have to assign a resource, nothing but a virtual machine. nothing but a virtual machine to the secondary subnet. The second part of this experiment says that deploy virtual machines in both in both the primary and secondary subnets and test the communication between these two. Means, so there are two subnets are there within the virtual network. So we have to create one virtual machine here and another virtual machine here. Okay, so we have to create a virtual machine in the primary subnet and one more virtual machine in the secondary subnet. Okay, so once these two virtual machines deployed in these two subnets, we need to check we need to check the communication between these two. Okay, the communication between these two virtual machines. Okay, so this is the task we need to perform in this experiment. Okay, so first try to understand. We have to create a virtual network which is a big circle. Second thing is we have to create two subnets. One is primary subnets and another one is secondary subnet. And the third one is we have to set up a firewall which is a network security group. Okay, and finally we are going to deploy two virtual machines in each of these subnets and we'll check the communication between these two. Okay, communication between these two virtual networks. Okay, so this is the task that we need to perform in the experiment 13 of the practical experiment. Okay, so now for that, go to the Azure portal. In the search bar, please type virtual networks. We're going to create a virtual network now. Select the subscription and the resource group. Virtual network name KL test VN. This is the name I want to give here. Select the region as Central India. Select the region as Central India. Look for the Central India where it is existed. Okay. Now click on the next. No need to touch this security parameters for this as far as this experiment concerned. Go to the IP addresses. See here. By default, Azure will select a default range of IP addresses. Okay, so these many virtual machines can be deployed in this particular virtual network. 65,500 range. Okay, if you want, you can change this range also. If you want, you can change by selecting this. Okay, if you want to more, you can select the lesser one. If you want to a less number of virtual machines, we can select the things. Okay, according to this organization requirement, the IP addresses are going to select. Okay, by default, whatever the Azure has selected, I am keeping this as it is. Okay, if you observe here, when it comes to the subnet, so for more detailed explanation of these IP addresses, you can refer to the part 1. I have explained clearly in that video. Okay, I will give the link in the description again. Now, if you observe here the subnets, so when it comes to the subnet, we require two subnets, right? One is primary and another one is secondary subnet. So by default, one subnet is created by the subnet is created with the values by the Azure itself. Okay, with the value of 256 addresses means we can deploy 256 virtual machines within the subnet. Okay, so just click here, just click on this. Just I want to change the name. Nothing I want to change here. The name I want to change it as a primary subnet. Okay, so this is the IP address range of the virtual network, starting address and the size. Okay, this is a private subnet. Nothing we need to change it. Network security group, though there is no NSG created at, we cannot select anything. We can create here also, but we will do this later. Okay, first we will create a subnet. Save. Nothing we need to change. Click on review and create. Now, our one virtual network is going to create for us. Deployment is in progress. Once this virtual network deployment succeeded, so once this means that big circle we have created, right? So the big circle is nothing but a virtual network. After we done this, we're going to create while creating the virtual network only, we have created one subnet, first subnet, that is nothing but a primary subnet. One more subnet we need to create, that is secondary subnet. Okay, so here if you see, this is the KL test. When you click here, you may see the different things. Okay, whatever the parameters you have selected while creating, you can see here. Click on the subnets. See, one subnet is created, right? Which is a primary subnet. One more subnet we need to create, which is a secondary subnet. Click on subnet here. Give the name as secondary subnet. Secondary subnet. Okay. By default, I'm keeping this. Uh, See here, if you observe, the secondary subnet IP address will starts with the 1.0. Okay, 1.0. Whereas the primary address which starts with the 0.0, 10.0.0.0, whereas the starting address has changed with the 1.0. So more 255 address can be added within this secondary subnet. Okay, I will show you that one also. Click on add. We're going to have one more subnet, which is secondary subnet. Okay, so we have created two subnets within the virtual network, within the same virtual network, right? So this is a primary subnet. If you see, the starting address starts with the 0.0, whereas the secondary subnet, the address starts with 1.0. Okay, so the range maybe gets slightly changed. Now our second step is also completed, which is nothing but creating the two subnet. So okay, the third step is creating the NSG. Creating the NSG. For that, go to the very simple home page. Click here NSG. Simple. Okay. Network security groups. Network security groups. Click on create. Resource group. So in which resource group you have created those subnets, that you have to select here. KL student learn. Name of the network security group. Give some name. KL NSG. I want to give this name. Select the region also same. Central India. Click on review and create. Create. Once this NSG created, okay, which is a firewall, this is a firewall. We need to select this firewall name for these two subnets that we have created. Okay, we have to assign this NSG network security group to those subnets. Okay, in order to protect it. For that, go to the Azure home page again. Click on virtual network. Click on the subnets here. Click on the primary subnet, which we have left over while creating. We have to enter now. Okay, which is nothing but network security group. Okay, so when you click here, KLNSG, this is what we have created, right? KLNSG. Click on save. The same thing. See here, if you see here, KLNSG has come. Now go to the secondary subnet also. Scroll down. Network security group KLNSG. Okay. Now these two subnets are protected by this NSG. That is nothing but what we are given is KLNSG. Okay. So the inbound traffic and outbound traffic will be filtered by this firewall. So I have assigned these two. Now, next step is we have to deploy one virtual machine in the primary subnet and another virtual machine in the secondary subnet. Okay. So first, go to the home page. Go to the home page. In the search bar, please type virtual machines. Create. You need to select some parameters here. Subscription, Azure for students, KL student learn, virtual machine name, give some name, KL VM1. This is the name I want to give, KM VM1. Region again, I want to select Central India. Availability options. Okay. Uh, as it is, no infrastructure redundancy required. As we are using a student subscription, okay, which is cost us very less, the availability options means no redundancy is required, no copy of data is required. Okay. Security type, leave it as it is. Otherwise, you can select a standard, which gives us less cost. When it comes to the image, click here and select Windows 11 Pro version 2, version 24H2. Okay, you can select on your own. This is your choice. Okay, this is nothing but an operating system. Now, size. When it comes to the size, whatever the size that was selected by the Azure, by default, I leave this as it is because which is giving us very less cost, only 1,400 rupees per month. Okay, it contains two CPUs, 4 GB memory. Otherwise, if you want, you can change by clicking here by all sizes, right? So I'm not disturbing this thing. I'm keeping this as it is. Give username and password. Give the username and the password of your choice for this virtual machine. So KL VM KL admin VM1. Just to recognize between the two virtual machines, I want to give like this. Okay. VM1, KL admin VM1, give the password following the standards. Yeah. So please remember this username and password because I have to log in into the virtual machine with this username and password only. Okay. Selected inbound ports is RDP, remote desktop protocol. Okay, through remote desktop protocol only, we're going to log in into this virtual machine. Select this licensing. I confirm I have an eligible license, Windows 11 license. Click on disks. Okay, there is no need to change this. Okay, now we are creating. Go to the networking here. Go to the networking. Now we are creating a virtual machine in the primary subnet, right? In the primary subnet. So we have to select those values here. So virtual network name is KL test VN means this big circle. So the subnet is nothing but the primary subnet. Primary subnet. If you click here, the two subnets are going to visible here. But I want to create this virtual machine in the primary subnet. Okay. Another virtual machine in the secondary subnet. So this is the public IP address already selected. Leave everything as it is and click on review and create. It is going to validate now the parameters what we have given. So it is going to display the cost. See per hour 2 rupees only. But what my suggestion is from my side, as long as you have completed this experiment, please delete all the resources what you have created, whether it is a virtual machines, virtual network, NSG, whatever it is. If you keep it in the Azure without deleting it, your credits are going to decrease. Okay, I request please delete as long as your experiment is completed by taking a screenshot. Okay, so validation is passed. Click on create. Now one virtual machine is going to create in the primary subnet, in the primary subnet. Okay, so the deployment is in progress. It is going to take some time to for the deployment process. We'll wait for that. So Well, the deployment is going on for the virtual machine 1. We'll create one more virtual machine which is required for the secondary subnet. Okay. In the secondary subnet also another virtual machine we have to create, right? So we'll do that one. Meanwhile, the deployment is going still is in progress. So search for the virtual machine here again. Virtual machines. Click on create. See, this is the status of virtual machine 1 is still creating. So no need to disturb that. So click on create Azure virtual machine. Select the required details. Select the subscription, resource group, virtual machine name, KL VM2. Okay, this is what I want to give. Region. Select the Central India. Same options I'm going to select here also, which I have selected for the virtual machine 1. Okay, no infrastructure redundancy. Security type is standard. Operating system also same. I am going to select Windows 11 Pro. Okay, so the standard price, the size, the configuration also I'm same. I am selecting here. Give the username. Here I want to give KL admin VM2 as username. Give the password also. Remember the passwords for the virtual machine 1 and for the virtual machine 2. The passwords what you have given, you have to remember username and the password, right? Better if you write somewhere while creating, so that no need to confuse while logging in, right? So I have given username password for the VM virtual machine KLadmin VM1 and KLadmin VM2 for second virtual machine. Okay. So click enable this license. Click on next disks. Okay. So no need to disturb these values. Click on networking. Now this virtual network I'm going to create within the secondary subnet, right? Within this secondary subnet. So for that I have to select. So the virtual network is same. Okay, KL test VN. Now click here, click on secondary subnet. Okay, the IP address is also going to change automatically. Scroll down. Nothing we need to change it. Okay, so make sure to select the subnet name. Okay, don't forget this. So click on secondary subnet and click on review and create. The virtual network is same, the big circle. The virtual network is same. Within this virtual network, I have two subnets, primary subnet and secondary subnet. Now this time I'm creating the virtual machine 2 in the secondary subnet. So validation is passed. Click on create. Let me check. Your deployment is completed. So virtual machine is created. Now this is going to deploy the secondary virtual machine. Secondary subnet virtual machine is going to deploy now. So first virtual machine is created. If you want, you can see here. Click on this virtual machine. Click on this virtual machine. Now you can see the parameters what you have selected. See the IP address, the private and the private IP address is this one 10.0.0.4. Okay. You can click on networking and under the network settings also you may find this. Okay. So under this network settings, go to this settings, network settings. You have to connect now. Okay. So we have to validate these two also. Otherwise, we have to create one port rule, inbound port rule, in order to validate these two values. Okay, configuration prerequisites. Yeah. So we have to do this by giving the port address. Go to the networking. So last time we also did for the same, right? Experiment 11 and 12 we have did the same thing. The same thing will also be apply here. Okay, go to the network settings. So create the port rule, inbound port rule. I'm going to create a rule now. Source, we have to select my IP address. Okay, so this leave as it is. Comes to the service, click on RDP, because this RDP only we are going to, so through this RDP only we are going to connect to the virtual machine, right? So select it, select the service RDP and the source is my IP address, click on add. Created a security rule that you can see here. Okay, this is the rule I have created, right? Double 389 the port of RDP. Now go to the connect again, click on connect, now click on select. You have to refresh this, click on select. It should be validated now. Okay, so meanwhile, still the deployment is in progress. We'll wait for that to complete. So the network configuration for the virtual machine, the remaining two also validated. Okay, so now we have to download this RDP file. Okay, this is virtual machine 1. Remember, this is virtual machine 1. Our virtual machine 2 is still in progress. So download this RDP file. KLVM1 is a RDP file which was downloaded. Once this also completed, then we are going to log in into these two. Okay, so the file which is downloaded, KL virtual machine 1, we try to open this, we try to connect this, log in into that. It is asking a password. Let's provide the password. Click on OK. This is virtual machine 1, right? KL admin VM1. So still it is deploying virtual machine 2. Once it is completed, we're going to log in into this virtual machine 2 also. It's configuring. For the first time when our system starts, it is going to configure itself, right? So it takes some time for the first time. So the same thing also happening here. The virtual machine 1, which we have created in the cloud, is initializing the configurations, right? Click on next. Means just we are accepting the terms and services. This is the virtual machine 1, okay, which we have created. Still it is deployment is going on. Once it get deployed, in the virtual network, the two virtual machines are get deployed. Then we need to check the communication between these two. Communication between these two. That is virtual machine 1 in primary subnet and virtual machine 2 in secondary subnet. Okay. Deployment going on. Please wait for this. Deployment is completed. Now go to the resource virtual machine 2. This is the virtual machine 2, right? So if you see here, the IP address, private IP address is 10.0.1.4. Now click on connect from the left hand side menu. Click on select. These two should be validated. Once they get validated, we have to download this RDB file like we did in case of virtual machine 1. So both are validated. Download the RDB file. Just log in into the virtual machine 2 also. Give the password and log in. Now this is a virtual machine 2. Okay, this is virtual machine 2, KL admin VM2. This is virtual machine 1 and This one is virtual machine 2. Now it is configuring, right? This is 1 and this is 2. So once virtual machine 2 also get deployed, you get initialized its configuration, we have to check whether the communication is happening in between these two or not. Okay. So once they get configured, we have to run this command. Okay, we have to run this command to activate the VM connection. To activate the VM connection. So go to the command prompt of virtual machine 1 cmd. Go to the command prompt. Now you can check here the IP address of this config. Okay, so this is the IP address of virtual machine 1 10.0.0.4. That is virtual machine 2 is 10.0.1.4. Okay, so once it get configured, still it is configuring. Click on next, accept. Okay, this is virtual machine 2. We are in virtual machine 2. So see now the two virtual machines are deployed successfully. This is KL virtual machine 1 in the primary subnet. This is KL virtual machine 2 in the secondary subnet. Okay, so now we have to check whether there is a communication in between these two or not. So try to ping this, ping 10.0.1.4. That is a virtual machine IP address in the secondary subnet. Okay, so I'm connecting from the primary subnet to the virtual machine which is in the secondary subnet. Yeah, because as I have already told you that it is not connecting because we have to execute this command in the command prompt, right? So in both the systems, you have to execute this, copy this. I will give this command in the description. Okay. So go to the command prompt here, execute the same thing, execute in the virtual machine 2 also. Open this command prompt in the virtual machine 2 and also do the same thing. Now, if you check it, we have to connect there also. We have to execute in the virtual machine 2 also. Now, if you see here, the IP config. So many windows have opened, I think. Click on the command prompt. The IP config. Now I am in virtual machine 2, right? So the virtual machine 2 address is 10.0.1.4. Now execute that command here also. Okay. Okay. Now try to connect with this from try to connect with the virtual machine 2 from virtual machine 1. See now, there is a reply from virtual machine 1, right? So this is the IP address from this is a virtual machine 1. I am in virtual machine now. I have connected to the virtual machine 2, which is 1.4. Okay. So I'm getting the I'm getting the I'm getting the packets from virtual machine 2. This is what our experiment asks us. The task of our experiment is this one only. Okay, deploy virtual machines in both primary and secondary subnet and test the communication between them, right? So in the virtual machine 2 also, just try to ping just try to ping with the virtual machine 1. See now, from virtual machine 2, I have connected to virtual machine 1. So 10.0.0.4 is the virtual machine 1. Whereas the from the virtual machine 1, if you see, I have pinged to 10.0.1.4. Okay, from 1 to 2. Okay, so the from the virtual machine 1, I have connected to virtual machine 2. The IP address of virtual machine 2 is 10.0.1.4. So there is a communication. So from the virtual machine 2, I have pinged to the 10.0.0.4, which is the address of virtual machine 1. So from the virtual machine 2, I have connected to the virtual machine 1. So there is a communication. Okay. So with this, our experiment task is completed. Okay. So like this, we have to create a virtual network. We have to create a virtual network and two subnets, one firewall. Within the subnets, we have to create virtual machine 1 and 2 and check the communication between these two virtual machines. Okay, this is what our last experiment, that is experiment 13, also us to do that. Okay, so okay, thank you, friends.